Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hi, Erin. I'm so excited.
Me too. Me too.
So yay, this is it. This is our new podcast. And I love the idea of this. And I just want to talk about like why we're doing this.
Sure.
Me personally, there's so many things that are going on in the pet space, and there's not enough time really to address every single thing. And I've always actually, I wanted to change my YouTube channel to be like a commentary channel on the pet industry, but I hate editing video.
I can understand that.
So that didn't happen. And, I guess when did we start? We started talking about this maybe in January.
Yeah, end of January, I think.
Yeah. And it was just sort of like, I just put it out there in the interwebs to see if anyone would be interested in doing something like that. And you sent me an email because you had been thinking the same thing. And here we are.
Yes.
So I just love the idea that, when it comes to the pet space and, there are so many passionate people and so many things going on. And yes, there are some like, quote unquote drama happening, but mostly what I find fascinating is the choices that people make, whether it be with their animals or with their businesses, and how it can have a ripple effect among other things. And I think the best example is in 2020 when Dogs Naturally magazine sued Coco Therapy. It was like one of those, like, everyone got silent in the room and it's like, we're suing each other now.
Yeah.
Because, and not to like unpack that case, but as a result of that, it really made me think, like, as a blogger and content creator, what can I and can I not say about brands? Because although I know it's crazy hard to launch a defamation lawsuit because there's so much that you have to prove, it's also very expensive.
Yes.
On both sides. And even if someone did not have a case, I'd have to ask myself, do I have the funds to fight, a frivolous lawsuit if it is frivolous? And the answer is no. So it really made me think about what I do. And because of that lawsuit, I stopped doing product reviews.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because I always try to do a full-fledged out, honest pros and cons type of product review. And I worried that someone would take offense to how I reacted to their product, how I felt about it, and sue me and say that I was trying to harm their business or that I did harm their business.
It's very interesting. And I think there is a difference between saying something like, oh, I didn't have a good experience with this, or it didn't work for my dog, versus saying something like, this product is killing dogs.
Yes.
And that's kind of a difference between like fact and opinion and our experiences. And also truth is always a defense to anything that's defamation. But like you said, that's still expensive.
Yeah.
The truth is very expensive, even if you're right.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I'm actually working on a product review right now. I broke my own rule. And it's so hard because I don't like everything about the product. And I have to really, I want to be fair. And a friend of mine, she emailed me yesterday and said, so what do you hate about the product? And I was just like, what? What do you mean? What are you saying? I didn't hate it. Did I say I hate it? I didn't say I hated anything. I got so freaked out. And she was just sort of like, no, I know you. There are going to be things about it you just don't like. And I was just like, okay, well, hate is very strong.
Yes, very, very
But
strong.
but now that we're talking about it, this is the list. But it was just sort of like, it made me like a little paranoid, because and also, just as, one human being, to another, I don't want to say or do something that might negatively impact someone's business. I still see myself as this person who one night sat down at my computer and started a blog called Keep the Tail Wagging to write about her puppies. I don't really think about who knows what Keep the Tail Wagging is, how many readers I have or followers. I don't really think about any of that, because when I compare myself to others, I'm just like, I still feel like this little fish in a big pond, because I mean, look at like Scott has this raw feeding group with, tens of thousands of members. Rodney and Karen have millions of followers. I mean, there are all these people who are in this space who really, I mean, and they're huge. I mean, I'm still like in awe of them, even though I can count many of them as friends. So I just still don't think of myself as that influential, even though I know that I do have influence. And so it's kind of hard to walk that line of being honest so that I can either direct people like, hey, this is a great product, or warn people to say, if you're going to buy it, just know that this is going to happen, or say, don't waste your money. This is horrible. I need to find a line between that and not disparaging a brand, right, or, a business owner. And I mean, and it's actually pretty easy to find that line, but it's still kind of nerd-wracking.
Yeah, and you always want to have integrity, and I think the people who follow you, like me, are attracted to that integrity. We don't want to hear, oh, this is a great thing, and then we get it and it falls apart, or we look into it some more on our own and find out, oh, this isn't what I want for my dogs. Like we want you to be honest, or else it's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what a lot of bloggers do. A lot of pet bloggers do, is that if they get a product and they try it out and they don't like it, I know so many pet bloggers, and I should say I knew, because our community, we used to be a community where we had an annual conference and everything, but all of that kind of went into the wind. And so we spread out to the four corners of the earth. But back when we were a community, and, and I'm part of these groups and such, there were a lot of people who had the mindset that if I don't like the product, I won't do it. Like, I will not do a negative review. They will not do it. They'll just contact the brand and said, yeah, I didn't like it. And the brand will be like, okay, well, don't worry about it. And you go ahead and keep it and move on. And I always thought about it. It's like, but what you find is negative, I might not find negative. It might be a total easy thing for me. Like, for instance, toys that tear apart really easily. I kind of expect that in my house. So to me, that's not a negative. That's just a fact of toys. But so I always felt that, I want to see the negative, or, the quote unquote negative reviews, because, you never know. And sometimes it's just like a heads up that, hey, I did a review for Animal Biome several years ago, and it wasn't 100% positive. I didn't have a great experience with the company, but I included in there that they were brand spanking new, that, it was, misunderstandings abound, and the tests were very complicated for me. But a lot of people who read that review or watched the video on YouTube, they didn't come back with, well, then I'll never buy anything from that company. They came back with, okay, so now I know that if I need to make sure I ask for a consultation, and I know that I think they provide that regularly now, but back then it was like, make sure we ask for one. The reports are going to be complicated, so they are prepared for that. And for some people, they were like, oh, they weren't as complicated as I thought they were going to be. So it was like easier for them. But it's one of those where one person's negative could be another person's no big deal.
Right. So
that's why it's like, I don't want to not do reviews. I just don't want to be sued.
Right. Right. And, I have worked in the legal field for over 20 years now, which I can't believe. But, I remember talking to my friend one time with our volunteer work, and she's like, how do we prevent getting sued? And I said, well, anybody can sue anybody at any time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even technically have to have a good reason.
Yeah.
Your lawsuit might get dismissed, but you can still file it and cause this hassle. But most people don't, because it costs money and they're not lawyers, and things like that. But yeah, it's scary. It's scary to be interacting with lawyers, or to get a cease and desist letter or something like that. It's very scary. And most people want to do everything they can to avoid that kind of situation.
I know it's crazy, because as a blogger, I have had to retain, I shouldn't say I haven't had to retain an attorney, but I've had to get consultations from an attorney, so much that I now have my go-to attorney.
Oh, wow.
When anything happens that I contact, and she gets everything squared away for me. But it's one of those where, different states, like for instance, in Washington, I can't record our conversations without letting the other parties know, and vice versa. So I had a brand record a conversation. They asked me for a review. I was happy to do it. This is years ago. And, but I had questions about the product, and they were angry about my questions. And I was just like, well, I have to make this review. It had to do with the laws. It was like these beware of dog signs. And I was just like, it says that it's effective in all states, but there are some states that feel that if you put up this sign, you're letting people know that you have an aggressive dog.
Right.
So how do you get around that? And that was my question. And I guess maybe they're getting that question all the time, and they were just like tired of that question. So the person called me back, and I'm trying to have a conversation with them, and they were so angry with me. And I was just like, they're like, we just don't want you to do the review. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And they're like, and we've recorded this conversation, and we're going to give it to our attorney. And if you say anything, and I was just like, whoop, 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 I'm in Washington State. I was like, you're more than welcome to take this recording wherever you want to. But now I have a lawsuit because you're not supposed to do that. And so I was like, you didn't let me know that you were recording. You didn't give me an opportunity to opt out. But it's little things like that where I think that, like with social media, and a lot of people who maybe they're business savvy, but they're not social media savvy, aren't really prepared for working with someone who is, primarily on social media. So there's lots of misunderstandings about what you can and cannot do. And it's interesting and fun. But basically, long story short, I have had to just call an attorney and go, so they threatened to sue me. and she's like, I tell her the facts. She's like, yeah, they got nothing. Don't worry about it. And just don't say anything to them anymore. Don't talk to them anymore. Don't do that blog post though. It's like, don't poke the bear. And that was the end of that.
Is she just like, again?
I know, exactly. Like, what do you do, Kimberly? And I'm like, I don't know. I trigger people really badly. So you're going to Healthy Dog Expo.
Yes, I am. I'm very excited. This will actually be like the most amount of people I've been around, since COVID also.
I'm like so jealous and so excited for you. I would love to go, but I have a dog with cancer, and he came out of remission in December. So his diet and supplementation and the vet appointments, all of that.
It's a lot.
Yeah, even for a couple of days, because it's like ultimately it's over a weekend, and I can come down go over or fly over for the weekend and come back. But I would spend the entire time just like freaking out, assuming that, Johan's back here feeding him cookies and crackers and, and I mean, he wouldn't, but that's basically where my mind would be. So I was just like, I'm just going to stay at home. So yeah, this is probably Dr. Lori Kozier's, probably going to be her absolute best event, because she has, Dr. Karen Becker, Rodney Habib, Susan Thixton, Susan Garrett, I can't remember her name right now, but she's an oncologist.
Dr. Kendra Pope.
Thank you, Kendra Pope.
I am very excited to see her.
I know. She is, what I love about her is that I wish, and it's one of those things where it's like, with what time, but I wish that she had a YouTube channel similar to Sue the Cancer Doc.
Yes.
Because that's where I go, is to Sue's channel, but she's a traditional, she
Right.
goes the traditional route. So it would be so cool if we had a holistic oncologist that had a channel and gave information the same way and explained all the drugs and the supplements and the diets and the processes and so on and so forth, because it's really hard to straddle, cancer care in a world where most of the people that I'm interacting with are traditional vets, not
Yes.
holistic vets.
I don't know if you knew this, but I'm actually a breast cancer survivor myself.
I did not know.
And I had been diagnosed in 2018, and I'm officially a survivor now as of 2019. So I did some, holistic interventions in conjunction with my traditional care myself. And so that's why I'm particularly interested in seeing Dr. Kendra Pope, because I'm so interested about what this looks like for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got to chat with her over Clubhouse one time about the use of mistletoe. And I used that in my own cancer. And so I was really excited to hear about it being used in dogs, because in Europe, they've been using it for like 35 years. There's all this really great research. There's been longitudinal studies showing, how well it works. And there are actually trials underway, actually here in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins, to get it approved for use in people in the US also. But yeah, I'm always interested. I lost both of my first two dogs to different types of cancer, and then I had cancer. And so that's something that I definitely pay a lot of attention to. And I'm always trying to follow all the latest breaking options and studies and things. So yeah, I'm very excited about that one.
I love that. I think if I were going, I would definitely want to corner Dr. Pope, because she is amazing. She's super friendly and nice, and I love her. Billy's going to be there. He's going to have a booth for Green Juju. He let me know. But I would want to just sit down with Susan Thixton again. I met her for the first time several years ago when they had an AFCO meeting here. And I went down and met, her and Dr. Judy Morgan, Dr. Cathy Alanovi, Billy Hookman. And I think that's who was there. And for dinner. And we just hung out, and I was just like in awe and just like, oh my God, look at where I am. And every now and then doing a picture, like look who's behind me. And she was so nice and friendly. But what I loved is I just love her stories about AFCO, because she's, for me, a great reminder that something shady is afoot. And because, she talked about, her phones being tapped and people following her daughter. I believe that happened. And it's just like, wow, really? I feel like there's a shadow world that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to believe, because not that I don't believe her, I definitely do believe her, but it's so hard to believe that, there's so much money and there's so many animals that why do we have to have this battle back and forth? Why can't we just enjoy the fact that, hey, if you want to feed raw, cool. I'm going to feed kibble and canned over here and cool, good for you. And just leave it at that, because it's not like we're all going to stop spending money on our animals unless we don't have money to spend. But I would love to sit down with her just to find out what she's been doing lately, what's been going on. Because, although I follow her, it kind of feels like stuff has been kind of quiet, lately especially in the fresh food space. We haven't had any recalls, knock on wood. And, everyone seems to be getting along pretty good. And, I guess the Answers Pet Food, Cure Pet Food stuff, that's on hold, for a while. So nothing's happening there. So it's just sort of like,
I'm sure there's lots going on. We just haven't heard about it yet.
Exactly.
And I always think Susan Thixton is such a great reminder of just what an individual pet parent can do.
Yeah. There's so many people out there that want to do something, that want to make a difference, and they don't know how. And the fact that she just does it, and she does all this on her own dime, like going to the AFCO meetings, which are insanely expensive to go to. They've made it so that the average person isn't going to show up. And I kind of understand, because you don't want a huge public, passionate pet parents who are just going to interrupt the meetings and not let you get work done. So, but I don't know if that was their reasoning for charging $500 to go, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's cool to be interrupting the meetings, but the more difficult that it is for people to attend, the more it makes you wonder what's going on that you don't want out there.
Exactly. And so it'll be interesting. I'm like really excited for you to go. I'm curious to know like what, after the Forever Dog, what the present, because I haven't looked at anything, because I don't want to have any FOMO. So so I'm curious to know like what Karen and Rodney will bring to the table. I spoke to Rodney Friday, and basically our entire thing, he asked me, it's like, well, send me some questions beforehand. And most of my questions were clarifying either memes that they've shared or sections in the book, because I was just sort of like, okay, let's talk about those blueberries. and things like that. So it was a really fun conversation to have.
And that's for National Raw Feeding Week, I believe, right?
Yes, for the first 7 days of April, National Raw Feeding Week. I'm just really excited for you. Oh, he told me that the venue space can fit 400 people, and that she's close to selling out. I don't know if she's selling 400 tickets though, but it'll be interesting to see, how big the space is, because I think people are so ready to like escape and go and do something and be around people, that I think the energy is going to be so amazing. And here now, this is my FOMO. It's like, damn it.
Well, that is one of the things I'm looking forward to. Is just, there's some people I'm looking forward to seeing in person. There's, just walking around where they have all the like exhibitor booths and seeing, what's out there. Like I get excited for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. So our plans for our podcast is to record, once a week and just talk about stuff that's happening in the pet space, in the pet world, whether it be recalls that are going on, or I bet we're going to talk about rotational
mono feeding.
I always forget which order it's supposed to go in. And it's right here next to me, so I should know better. But I just started reading up on it, and I find it absolutely fascinating. I don't agree with several things that they're talking about in the book, and a few things I've seen in the group, I'm just sort of like, but I'm keeping an open mind, because you never know. But, there's so many things going on that we don't really talk about. I know I don't really talk about, and it would just be fun just to have a nice conversation about, hey, did you see what happened to such and such? That's interesting.
So I just have to jump in on the rotational mono feeding real quick.
Okay, please do.
Because I had never heard of that before. And so I went and was looking it up too. And it is interesting how people react to new information that's like different from anything you've ever heard before. And But then I think of like, well, there's some people who thrive on like a vegan diet.
Yeah.
But there's some people who thrive on like the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And there's people who get really, passionate about like juicing, or there's like a raw food movement in humans where you don't like cook your food above, a certain degree. But like I don't do well eating raw vegetables. Like I do not want a salad put in front of me ever, So it of course it seems to make sense to me that like maybe there are some dogs or some animals that would thrive doing something that is completely different. But my dogs seem to be doing pretty well with what I feed. So I don't know that I'm looking to go change, but
exactly.
But it's a tool in the toolbox, I guess.
Exactly. And that's how I kind of look at it. Because, when I first started feeding raw, the main things were there was the barf model and the prey model,
Right.
and never the two shall meet. And if you were in a prey model group, they would tell you, do not talk about vegetables here. You do not talk about, and I mean, it was very strict. And if you were in a barf model group, it was strict the other way. And then, shortly after that came the science base of raw feeding, where you need to balance everything. And when that came about, I was just like, nope. I don't balance my own diet, so I don't need to balance my dog's diet. Until a friend was like, hey, Kimberly, I used to have that problem or that mindset. And guess what happened to my dog? And basically, her dog has had an eye condition because of, I can't remember what her diet, I think it was deficient in zinc, or maybe it was manganese. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But basically, a deficiency caused her dog to have a health issue. And so that's when I started taking that a little more seriously. I still don't do a bunch of math when I'm feeding my dogs, but I went and looked at the information out there and pulled from it what was going to work for me and what I was doing, and made changes accordingly. And I hope to do that same thing with the rotational mono feeding, because I like the idea of feeding one thing a day. So rather than doing all of these different things in the bowl, just today is a meat day. Tomorrow is a veggie day, even though I don't really know how that would work, because I would have a hard time filling my dog's bowl with vegetables and having them eat them. And I know Rodrigo would be like, no, no, thank you. And, I would do a fat day, even though I know that group, they're not big on fat. They're big on very much lean everything. But, who knows how it would work with my dogs, if they would like it better, enjoy it better, if it would be easier for me to feed them this way, because I don't have to mix things up anymore. But I honestly don't know. But it's just, I'm curious to look into it. And if it turns out that this isn't something that I want to do, then I don't do it. And I learn something new.
But, maybe there's a dog out there who isn't thriving doing the traditional raw, and this is something that might be able to help them. I guess that's what I always try to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It's just I like to have all the tools in the toolbox.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's so funny because I was saying that earlier today. But it's like, that's what it comes down to. This is a tool in the toolbox. And it's just like, and it's funny because I asked around to a few people and no one really knows about it. So it's just sort of like, I people who I thought would know, and they're so, educated about these things, and they're just like, yeah, I've never heard of it before. So, I think it's kind of cool so far. I think the biggest thing that's standing out to me right now is the amount of carbs that are being fed to dogs, which I find it interesting because they seem to be trying to replicate kind of like a diet of a wild dog. But I don't know if a wild dog would have a low fat diet necessarily. I don't know if their prey would be low fat necessarily. And I also don't know if a wild dog would be eating a carb heavy diet. I know that like the coyotes, which aren't dogs, but the coyotes in our area, they come and take like fruit from our trees at the end of the summer. And, like as we're going into the fall and stuff and everything's dying down, they start taking that. But I sort of feel like it's just an opportunity rather than a staple of their diet. So I don't know, but it's sort of like this is day 2 of me knowing about rotational mono feeding. So, and it's actually not day 2. I've heard of it before, but this is day 2 of me really looking into it. So, I have no idea. So it'll be interesting to see. And I actually want to find, to see if there's any studies out there about, feeding fruit to dogs, or maybe an area of the world where, like in certain areas, coconut is a big thing. And so, maybe there's an area of the world where dogs do, because the fruit is available. Dogs are eating it on a regular basis, but I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that video, as well as reading more about your experiences with it. Because this was a totally new thing to me.
Yeah. It's just like it is. It's kind of exciting. I love the response to it too, because people were not happy. People had things to say.
Well, I went and read some on the website, And I have not joined the Facebook group, but I went and read the website and I said, I can see why some people were really triggered by this. Like, this was not a website, like, in my mind, that was like written by like a professional copywriter, you know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I could see why people did have a reaction to it.
But yeah, and I understand it, because it's funny, because one person asked, and I adore her. She's like one of my favorite followers. But she asked, she's like, you don't have a problem with the fact that they say that their way is the only way and they're the only ones who are right. And I just laughed to myself when I read that. And it's just like, so did the prey model people, so did the barf model people, so did the people who home cook, so did the people who are feeding a vegan diet to their dogs. Everyone thinks that their way is the way. The raw fed and nerdy crew, everyone thinks that their way is the way to feed dogs. And so it's just sort of like, if I got turned off by that, I probably wouldn't be part of this community at all. And I've learned over the years that no matter how we come to raw feeding, whether it be through the prey model door or the barf model door, or even though it's the science door, I always call it the raw fed and nerdy door, because, but however we come to raw feeding, I think ultimately we end up changing the diet so that it's specific to our own dogs. So none of us are, completely devoted to one way of feeding our dogs. And because we do what's going to work for them. And then over time, like with Rodrigo, he's going to be 12 in 9 days, and he no longer wants to eat raw. He's just like, I can mix a little bit into his cooked food, but he's just like, nope, I'm ready to eat cooked food now. And so I had to change how I feed him, and we have to be willing to make those type of adjustments,
right?
And so I know that the rotational mono feeding, even though some people say that it helped with cancer dogs, no way would I feed Scout, a meal of sweet potatoes and quinoa. I mean, that's just like not going to happen. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that unless I spoke with a lot of people, veterinarians and nutritionists, who could assure me that I was not about to just, serve up a buffet to cancer cells when I'm doing that. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yes, I'm very excited to learn more. That's for sure.
So is that it?
I think so.
Are we done? That was fun. It was fun talking to you, Erin.
Yes, you too.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, you guys. Thanks for following along. And I have a dog next to me that's decided that he needs my attention. You got to love that. Come on. Stop it. So I guess we'll stop. I'm horrible about ending podcasts.
Well, I'm sure that we will have lots of links in the show notes for everyone who wants to follow along with what we're talking about. And if people are at the Healthy Dog Expo, hopefully they'll come say hi.
You're going to have so much fun. I'm so jealous. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to sit down and listen to us. And if you guys have topic ideas, we will have contact information in the notes as well. So you can contact us and say, hey, what are you guys' thoughts on blankety, blankety, blank? And we'll share those in a podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you.